Hi, today I will discuss Thomas Jefferson's vision for higher education during 1760 to 1826, although his vision did not stop with his passing in 1826. Thomas Jefferson was born in Shadwell, Virginia, became a member of the legislature in 1769, and governor of the Commonwealth in 1779. Thomas Jefferson was one of the most significant influential persons during this era. Jefferson's vision for higher education during 1760 and 1826 was to educate the masses, publicly fund education, and a college free of organized religion. And say, finally, whether a peace is best preserved by giving energy to the government or information to the people. Last is the most certain and the most legitimate engine of government. Educate, inform the whole masses of the people. Enable them to see that it is their interest to preserve peace and order, and they will preserve them. And it requires no very high degree of education to convince them of this. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. After all, it is my principle that the will of the majority should prevail. And this came from one of Jefferson's letters in 1787. The vision of Jefferson was to educate the masses, and he knew that meant providing strong American colleges, including the poor, women, and African Americans. Women and African Americans did not fare so well in this plan. The push was for the white male and the poor masses at that time. He felt women should only receive enough education to be able to teach their young children out in a country situation with no other source. In a letter to Nathaniel Burwell, written in March 14, 1818, you can see the two marks is notations there. He states, "A plan of female education has never been a subject of systematic contemplation with me." And in the other arrow, it says, this is an interesting passage, is a great obstacle to good education is the inordinate passion prevalent for knowledge, and the time lost in that reading which should be instructively employed. When this poison infects the mind, it destroys its tone and revolts it against wholesome reading. Reason and fact, plain and unadored, are rejected. He just felt that they just wasted their time with fantasy readings. African Americans, he knew education needed to be addressed with African Americans and introduced an amendment with inclusion, but was removed before acceptance. Jefferson picked his battle, and unfortunately the University of Virginia was his choice. Jefferson dropped the push for emancipate the slaves, as he knew at that time they were just not ready. The fear of white politicians in Virginia was education would encourage knowledge, ambition, and independence. When asked about the education for African Americans, he would respond about their inferiority was environmentally based, but offered no solution to change the environment. Jefferson actually felt slavery was being used as a front by the northern politicians to divide the country sectionally and ensure better success in the presidential election. In this note, you can see he talks of emancipation and not just education for the slaves. He really did believe in it, in emancipation. It's just he knew he was better suited to work in other areas at that time because it just wasn't going to happen. Educating the youth was essential. He felt that they should be educated in America and include more practical subjects. Jefferson presented the more general diffusion of knowledge bill in 1779 that would increase the education reach, included elementary education up to higher education. It did not include education for African Americans and women in higher education. He cannot visualize women in positions of leadership, and the novels that they read infected their minds like poison, as well as they should concentrate on dancing, drawing, and music. The more general diffusion of knowledge bill created a public educational system for slaves to prepare them for freedom, but was removed before legislation passed the bill. A bill proposed by Jefferson did not suggest future emancipation, as he felt it was not the moment, but knew the occasion would come in which emancipation should occur or dire effects would come. Jefferson was against expanding slavery in 1784, but by 1820 he was a proponent of slavery to give new states equal footing and mitigate the British model of inferiority. In order to broaden education, Jefferson divided land grids into 36 square mile townships, and then those were divided up into square mile sections, and suggested these townships preserve a plot in the center of town for a common school and one plot for a church. The University of Virginia made it possible for the Southern boys to attend college closer to home. He was trying to get to the masses by expanding colleges, all over the country and even in the southern states. He influenced national education by founding the United States Military Academy at West Point. The spirit of Jefferson's message was that all children could be educated, not just a select few, and this vision was continued, but due to the time and obstacles, it was not materialized until after his passing. Thomas Jefferson proposed a bill that placed the burden of funding public schools on the inhabitants of the counties by paying a proportion of tax. Thus, the wealthy pays added funds for the education of the poor. And Jefferson was a large proponent of the publicly funded education, and he requested the Virginia legislature to fund the state schools. This was kind of the beginning of the Robin Hood plan today, where he was trying to get the rich to pay for the poor. And that was met with opposition. They were saying, why do I have to pay for other people's children's education? Jefferson was instrumental in providing appropriations of federal land as endowments for colleges in certain states. And there was a literary fund for education from the ground up on the pyramid system of elementary on the lower tier, secondary on the middle tier, and higher education at the summit. Jefferson saw the importance of educating the young to prepare them for higher education, but later he reversed his pyramid and put the funds on the top in order to benefit the University of Virginia. He used a large portion of the literary funds on the University of Virginia, and that began kind of some talk about how he was using it inappropriately. And this is the famous Jefferson College, in which he began in his later years of devoting most of the funds and his time to this college. Jefferson felt that religion controlled education, felt that if religion controlled education, the country would advance only in the direction of that particular religious mission. And he wanted it not controlled by a specific religion. He wanted it to be what's best for the country and not what a few select wanted it to be. Jefferson was passionate about education being practical, useful, and not influenced by religion. Jefferson tried keeping the primary education out of religious control by beginning his own seminary school based on Jefferson's own school of natural religion. Jefferson's fear was that zealous preachers would shape the young minds that would eventually be leaders of the country. He was strongly against organized religion. Thomas Jefferson began offering faculty positions to individuals based on their intellectual capabilities instead of their religious backgrounds, which was met with disdain. He saw the importance of educating the young to prepare and keeping their minds young and keep from being molded by the zealots. He pushed towards a democratic education, not controlled by a specific religion. Jefferson made many angry by having secular professors. Here is a quote from Addis, 2003. Presbyterians dread the advance of science as witches do the approach of the day. Wow, those are strong words. William and Mary College called upon its alumni, Thomas Jefferson, to assist with reshaping the college, but an attempt to make it a state college failed. He was successful in moving William and Mary College towards professorships of law and police, anatomy, medicine, chemistry, modern languages, and eliminated 2 professorships of divinity and Oriental languages. Jefferson wanted to make William and Mary College a state college, thus propelling it into separation of church and state. The University of Virginia was respected as a model college with its educational mission. It was felt that whoever controlled the colleges controlled the ideology of the elite. He was trying to begin this separation of church and state. Jefferson's focus began to be primarily fixed on the funding of the University of Virginia. Jefferson felt religious freedom was fundamental to civic freedom and a prerequisite for political virtue and moral growth. Denominational schools included a wide variety of educational opportunities centered on professional and secular training rather than theology. Denominational schools are now seeing the importance of other educational opportunities, not just religion, and to keep people involved in their religion, then they began adding these other types of educational opportunities to bring them in. Restoration of the freedom of the mind began being taken back from the clergy and returned to the citizens, thus escalating the people to a level of moral respectability desired for their own safety and sound government. Again, the importance of education for sound government. Education was pushed because they wanted people to be able to have sound government and run the country and advance the states. And it wasn't education wasn't pushed, just so we would be smarter. It was more for the good of the country. And here is where Jefferson gave us freedom of religion, where that arrow ends. Worth and genius would thus have been sought out from every condition of life and completely prepared by education for defeating the competition of wealth and birth for public trust. He wanted intelligence and vision to run the country, not someone that was wealthy or born into status. We now have public education for all, state-funded education, and a choice of religious or non-religious education, thanks to the dedication of Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson's leading impact was in higher education and religious freedom. Today, the effects of Jefferson's work, dedication, and dreams throughout his lifetime are important. Jefferson knew education was important for the advancement and order of the country and realized the consequences of zealots in charge. He also knew slavery needed to be dealt with, and a progression of education and assimilation was important for a smooth emancipation. Jefferson was a true visionary. It was demonstrated Jefferson's vision for higher education during 1760 and 1826 was to educate the masses, public-funded education, and a college free of organized religion. Although his dream did not materialize until after his death, he set the wheels in motion. Thank you for attending.